It's time to play the song again. We're talking about the rest of the Orlando Magic and their 24-25 season. Paolo, Franz, Suggsy, Mr. Black. It's all coming up. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and can I take you to a place where blind men see? I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms, of course. You're listening every day, you're you're double banging, you're commenting and subscribing and sharing maybe. Maybe you want to share. Share. Not the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s superstar. Just sharing with your friends. All right. Orlando Magic. It's not National Donald Duck Day. I should have changed that. It's a different day today, but that's okay. We'll do it for the next team that we do. We're here to talk about the Orlando Magic and their season. We talked about the centers and Wendell and Goga and Mo Wagner and the disaster that was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in yesterday's show. Today we're going to get straight into the actual good players on this team, and we'll start with the best ranked fantasy player for the season. No, not him. Franz Wagner. And yes, I know, in points leagues, the answer is actually Paolo Banchero, but Franz was the better category league player, but of course his season was very up and down. It could have been better. It could have been way worse. Franz is 24, and he had a gigantic usage. I didn't actually, when I look at this, and obviously I prepared this and put it up so I knew, but prior to that, if you would have said, did Franz Wagner have a usage of over under 30%, I would have said, probably hovering 27. Nah, 31. All right, cool. So we knew this team, it wasn't heliocentric because we were running the old double sun like Tatooine with both he and Paolo, but I didn't know it was to that extreme. 34 minutes a game for Wagner. He was the 30th ranked player in both category leagues and points leagues. You will notice a discrepancy. 19th before the trade deadline, 52nd after the trade deadline. Now, is that because of trades? No. It's because a large chunk of the time before the trade deadline, A, Franz was injured, and B, Paolo was injured. So Franz was doing a lot by himself, and we saw him running as like a top 15, top 12 player in that period where Banchero was out. What is really frustrating about Franz, now he did take steps forward. I don't understand how Drip's Delta's got him in the 20th percentile. I thought Franz was very good and actually did things that we needed him to do. He'd been a very good complementary piece, but he was able to step up and show that he can be a number one type guy. I'm a little bit disappointed that once again, he couldn't hit threes. Now, I said this in the offseason, and I'll say it again now. He has hit threes before. He has shown an ability to hit threes. He just hasn't for 2 years. He did for the first 2 years, but he didn't for the last 2 years. So which is it? I'm not going to say that he can't shoot. I'm going to say that he's unreliable though, because if we're hitting under 30% of three again in this season on large volume, it's a problem, but 87% from the line, 46% overall, 6 rebounds, 4.7 assists, they're good numbers. 1.3 steals is pretty solid, even though he's not a high deflections guy. So when we look at all of this, there are things we can look at moving forward for Franz. Is 31% usage a real number if we had a full season of Banchero and a full season of Suggs? Probably not. I don't think it would stay that high. And if this team wants to be better, they actually need more offense, meaning that they need Franz to do less. But, what if he is or does have a 35% shooting season? That's not even a high number. What if he shoots 37% from three for a year or 2 years? The field goals then jump to 48. The scoring goes from 24, or maybe even stays at like 25 because usage drops, percentage up, hover around that area. 1.7 threes become 2.3 threes. Then you're still hovering in that 30 area. So we always liked Franz as a player. We liked his ability as a fantasy guy, but he always seemed like that king of mid. And I know people hate when I say that about Denny Avdia. Denny Avdia's numbers this season, he was the king of mid because every one of his categories was close to the average in a standard fantasy league. That is why he was that. Right? He was the closest to average. On the sum of all the differences, he was closest. And that used to be Franz. Average points, threes, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, field goals, free throws, just average across the board. But he bumped it up. He bumped up the assists a little bit more. He bumped up the scoring. He bumped up the free throws. And there is still a little bit more to squeeze, but the question's going to be is when you squeeze the free throws up, or you push them up, or not the free throws, the three-pointers up, but then we tie them with a presumed drop in usage, does he sort of hover around the same area? Again, 30th this season. He will almost certainly go around round 3, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how people are going to view him. I think round 4 would be ideal. And that sort of valuation, round 3, round 4, he's only 24. This can stick for 4 or 5 years very easily. There's not a lot here that looks outrageously unsustainable. So it was a really strong season from Franz Wagner. There were highs and there were lows very clearly, and he has some up and downs, and a lot of that is tied to the efficiency. I would just, again, be a little cautious about that usage number. What is also interesting, passing creation volume, 92nd percentile across the NBA. You don't really think of Franz as an elite passer. I don't think he's an elite passer. He's a good passer. He's a solid passer. He's a solid offensive initiator, as you can see by his offensive load being 95th percentile. But has he got room to be better as a passer? What if they bring in an actual legit point guard? Would it be he or Paolo that loses those initiation touches? I think I know that it'd be Franz. So while I feel confident about the stability of what Wagner can do, I am a little concerned that they're just... Not saying that he's a guy... I have this theory, or not this theory, this idea when viewing things dynasty-wise, when looking at a team, do you go there and go, would you be looking to upgrade that player's position? And I don't think you would do that with Franz. I don't think you would come in and go, yeah, we're building something here. We've got to do better than Franz, though. I don't think that people think that on that team. They'll be like, we're locked down. We've got our starting 3 absolutely pinned in. The thing is, though, there's the secondary part of that where they go, we've got our starting 3 pinned down, but what if you get someone that's better as a shooter and someone that's better as an initiator to play next to him? So we're not upgrading the position. We're changing the dynamics of the offense. And that's where, even though I know there is a level of stability, a strong level of stability with Wagner moving forward, that I worry that some of the dynamics of his skill set might have to adjust just because of the nature of the way the NBA is played and the struggles that the Magic had at times this season. We're going to come back and talk about his teammate, one of the more divisive fantasy basketball characters in Paolo Banchero, coming up really soon. Today's episode, though, it is brought to you by DoorDash. The NBA Finals are on, and that means we're going to get big performances, and you're going to get even bigger rewards. DoorDash brings the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It is called They Swoosh and You Score. Of course it is. What else would you call it? There's no other name that you could call it apart from They Swoosh and You Score. So DoorDash and Dash Pass absolutely bang on, nailed it. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more. Use the code WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and the combo is yours. It's crispy, it's delicious, and more importantly, it tastes better because it's totally free. The offer is valid from noon to midnight the day after the game. Of course, there's terms that apply. So, sign up for Dash Pass and unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. With any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab that free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 or more order and the code WINGSTOP50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. All right, I teased it, so we might as well just get into talking about Paolo Banchero, a guy that was obviously the number 1 pick in the draft. There is a lot of insane debates happening on social media at the moment about, also the thing that I'm noticing on social media at the moment, ready for me to sound old, where people just call something FC. Paolo FC versus Jett FC versus Spreadsheets FC. Bruh. What are we doing? Anyway. You could never take Jett. Imagine thinking Jett's the best player in that draft. Paolo clears, whatever. Like, we know sort of what Paolo is as a player right now. And he started off year 3 absolutely out of control, right? And out of control in a good way, like dominate. Like, wow. All right, as he fixed this stuff, as he fixed some of the issues up. Got injured, torn oblique, out for a long time, came back, putrid. And then picked it up again with some very strong play down the stretch. Very strong play down the stretch. Paolo is only 22. He had a usage of 34%. He played 46 games. He was the 61st ranked player in category leagues, 17th in points leagues. And what you will notice, if you look at the pre and post deadline splits, he was actually 25th in category leagues post deadline. But I know what you're going to say. You're going to tell me no, he wasn't, Josh. He's terrible at category leagues. He's useless. He's absolutely putrid. He hurts you in too many categories. I know you're going to tell me that. And if you want to buy into that idea, we have to have a discussion. We're going to have a narrative sort of moment here about talking about this. Because if we want to go by those numbers which you're quoting, you're going to sit here and tell me that you prefer Grant Williams over Paolo Banchero because he ranked higher than him on a strictly 9-cap purpose. You're going to tell me that Lou Dort would have been a better selection for you, which of course, yeah, makes total sense. Everyone would want that. You're going to tell me that it would be better for you to have had Kasey Wallace on your fantasy team. Yeah, makes sense. You would have also gone in with the idea that Ty Jerome and Paolo Banchero were the same. Yeah, again, pretty common sense sort of discussion. Royce O'Neal, Jeremy Grant, all players with the exact same value as Paolo Banchero using those rankings. So, if you want to stay with a straight face and tell me that that seems accurate to you, go for it. I won't. Therefore, that is why I worked and developed a Durant ranking system to accurately reflect the value of players in category leagues, in my opinion. Because there is in no world, in my opinion, that you can sit here with a straight face and go, yeah, no, I'd much rather have Rui Hachimura than Paolo Banchero for fantasy. All right? If you want to write the dissertation, put it in the comments. Do it. Because it's foolish. I'm sure I can find even some funnier names there. Aaron Neesmith, how about him? We go for Aaron Neesmith over my man. What about Matisse Thybulle? He ranked higher on a per-game basis than Paolo by a lot. 35 spots. Seems right. Seems pretty good. So, all of that is to say, there are going to be people, because Paolo is going to have a high ADP. There is no question about that. His ADP this season was 35. And your immediate gut reaction for a lot of you will be, oh, that's just points leagues. Yeah, sort of. He is one of the guys that splits the problem here. He's way better than that in points leagues. He's a second-round player in a points league, Paolo. He averaged 43. That's 17th. So 35 is not a points league ADP. It's a mixture ADP. And those mixture ADPs are where value can be found for different formats. Because it's also going to be the situation in category leagues where people see that ADP. And if you're in a league where people just don't, they buy into Matisse Thybulle being 3 rounds better than Paolo Banchero, you might see people just completely ignoring that ADP for Paolo for way too long. Because he's not this good. We'll let him slide. See, it's a points league ADP. We'll let him slide. I'd be very comfortable taking Paolo inside the top 50 in a category league, no problem. And I know that you would say, oh, he's really bad at percentages. 73 from the line, it's not great. Volume is bad, right? 45% for the field, not great. Cool. I am not going to sit here and tell you that he's necessarily going to improve. He hit 32% from 3, better than Franz. He hit 2 threes a game, 7.5 boards, 5 assists, 26 points, 0.8 steals, and 0.6 blocks. Are any of those what you would consider terrible numbers? I mean, they're not great from the steals perspective, but a lot of it comes down to the ability to replace those stats. Or the ability and the knowledge, especially in a head-to-head format. Roto, obviously a little bit different. But the ability to be able to understand the differences and the nuances between formats. And I do think that's important. We did have a situation where Paolo was improving in those percentages and then really suffered immediately when he came back. But the second half of the season was, obviously, as you can see by those numbers, incredibly strong. When he averaged 29 points a game over his final 20 games. So, heading into year 4, Paolo, I don't know that he'll do it. He's been around 73% from the line every season, all 3 seasons. I am not going to rule out the fact that he could, and I won't project this, that he could come out and shoot 78. I'm not going to rule out the idea that he shoots 35 from 3 or shoots 48 from the field. I'm not going to rule any of that stuff out. Do I think that it's incredibly likely? Not really. Not really. He had his best season this season from 2-point land up to 50%. He dropped a little bit in his 3-point numbers from 34 down to 33, and his free throws stayed the same. A lot of it is all very similar. right? So we want improvements here. What he did, though, is he took his usage from 30 to 34. That probably can't get any higher. So it'll stay there. And now we look for efficiency improvements. I actually do believe they will come. And depending on how you want to view this or how things go in a Dynasty League, I do get the feeling, and I could be wrong, maybe he just sticks always at this, what's his true shooting? At 55%. His true shooting the last 2 seasons, identical, 54.6. Maybe he is a career 54.6 true shooting player. I'd bet that he isn't. And I would like to think that in a Dynasty format, we can get 2 percentage points on that, 3 percentage points on that over the next 2 years. Steals, who knows? Do they actually increase to 1? Not really fussed. I think there is more here from Paolo. I do not think this story is written. And I think that the idea of him being ranked outside the top 120 for category leagues is asinine. It's insane. And not that the person who has Paolo in Dynasty formats is believing that number, but you just never know. So I would be inquiring. Let's talk about the player that I talked about in yesterday's show, who is not the best player on the Orlando Magic team, but he's the most important player on the Orlando Magic team. And it couldn't have been proven more than this season, I don't think. Franz goes down, Paolo goes down, team's fine. Suggs goes down, cooked. Coincidence? Some of it, sure. Yep. But this is a player who, look, he didn't shoot that well, 31% from 3. He shot really well the season before. But we're talking about a leader, a heart and soul player for this team, a guy who's actually a point guard, but also is one of the most tenacious on-ball defenders in the league. Part of the problem with Suggs, though, Jalen Suggs, I didn't even know if I mentioned his name, is the injuries. He had that random back injury, which cost him all that time. He came back, played like 2 games and hurt his knee, and then we didn't get really updates on what was happening with his knee. By the way, the Orlando Magic, the fastest team to put out an injury report prior to a game, the worst, or top 3 worst teams in terms of actually telling us what the injury is or diagnosing it or providing timelines. They'll just say, like, they'll play a game on Wednesday, and by the time Wednesday's Pacific time zone games are finished, they'll put out their injury report for the next day. They're great with that. The problem is the injury report just says out knee. You go, any chance of, like, you've said that 15 games in a row, do you want to, like, tell us anything about it? No. But we'll tell you early. We just won't tell you anything. So there's differences in what's a good injury report and what's a bad injury report. They're still bad at it. Suggs was the 62nd ranked player this season. He was really putting together some very good numbers. 16, 4 and 4, 1.5 steals, 1 block, 88 from the line, 2.2 threes. He had 28 usage. Now, I will caution this. You'll notice he didn't play after the trade deadline, which is when they had the services of Franz and Paolo back. So that 28 usage is not going to hold over a full season. He won't likely have that usage when Franz and Paolo are both playing. His passing creation volume up to 89th percentile. Still only generated 3.7 assists. But if he's playing with Paolo and Franz, he might not really be able to improve that. The steals and blocks, I totally believe in. He is excellent at that. His time on ball, I'm not sure I believe that. I think he's more of a 24 usage player, to be honest, which has an impact. We still didn't get him to 30 minutes a night. Will Jamal Mosley ever do that? I think he should. But I guess the question now has to remain, can his body actually do that? Like, can he actually sustain playing 32 minutes a night? Because he hasn't been able to. And even in 29, he lasted 35 games. So I love Jalen Suggs. I think he's a key player in this team. I think he does have the ability to be a 6.5 assist player, an 18-point player, a 2.5 threes player, a 2 steals player, a 1 block player, which is a top 30 fantasy player. But I don't think he'll ever get there. Because of, A, the players he plays with, and B, the fact that his body hasn't been able to sustain that level of intensity, and if he has to ramp it down, like, is he, put it this way, is he Alex Caruso, a player that is unbelievably impactful, but the impact that he has, why do I say it that way? The impact that he has puts so much strain on your body that you've got to pull him back to mid-20s in minutes. That would be a little bit of my worry. I love Suggs. He's key on this team. They need somebody to help him out in that backcourt. But I am a little concerned about his ability to even push that number higher from 29 up, the minutes. And I would never, he was 62nd this season, and I think that's reasonable given the numbers he put up, but I would never draft him there. To me, he's like a guy in the 90s, 100s that you would take because injury concern, do they push minutes, usage could drop, how does it all go? That would be my level of concern with him. As much as I love him and as much as I think the impact is very strong with Suggs, you have to take all those things into consideration. We've got more guys to talk about. We'll come back and do that in a sec. Today's episode, though, it is brought to you by Monarch Money. Yes, you check your bank account and you wonder. You sit and you go, where's it gone? Where did the money go? Food, maybe. Subscriptions, possibly. Online shopping, of course. It can be easy to lose track of this stuff. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO. And it helps you budget, helps you plan, helps you track your spending, but also helps you build future wealth. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, tracking all of your accounts, all of your investments, and all of your spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When you start using it, you can realize how much you're spending on individual things. If you've got a bunch of entertainment subscriptions, what about food deliveries? Well, see that, hey, that's a lot of money there. Maybe we cut that back. Invest the money somewhere else. It's easy to do that with Monarch Money. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. That's the three main players for this Orlando Magic team. Let's get into some of the others where there are quite a few question marks about some of these guys. And we're firstly going to get into talking about their number 6 overall pick from 2 years ago, Mr. Black. Anthony Black, I did not like as a prospect at all. I had him outside the top 11, I think, in that draft. I had Cason Wallace very clearly ahead of him as a point guard. And despite injuries to Cole Anthony, injuries to Jalen Suggs, we had Corey Joseph starting ahead of Anthony Black. Now, you can debate whether that was the right decision or not from Jamal Mosley, but you can't debate that it happened. I think that Black shows flashes. Right, he comes in, he'll have the occasional good game where he goes 6 of 6 and 20 points. We go, whoa, here we go. And then we end up with like whatever this is over the course of the season. 9 points in 24 minutes, under 20 usage. He was the 198th ranked player. It is interesting, he was 150th post-trade deadline without Suggs. He averaged 0.6 blocks and 1.1 steals. And when you come in as a guy who really struggles offensively and your calling card is defense, well, I'm going to need you to actually bring really, really strong defense. And that is not to say that 1.1 steals and 0.6 blocks are bad. It's not to say that Black is a bad defender, because he's not. He's a good defender. But if you're going to be bad at offense, you need to be excellent at defense. And he's not. He's not excellent at defensive playmaking. He's not excellent at defense for fantasy. He's not excellent at defense in real life. He's good at defense in real life. Is he a great passer? Not really. Like, he's okay. 3.1 assists in 24 minutes is okay. It's not bad. But he's not an incisive passer. He's not a threat to shoot. 32% from 3, 42 overall, 76 from the line. Now, to be fair, I think he did show some improvements this season. I think he looked better. As a rookie, I thought he looked lost. But it is a little telling as a number 6 overall pick that with other point guards injured, you're still not giving opportunities to start. And we're seeing all these other guys move into those spots. Trevelyan Queen, Corey Joseph, Cole Anthony. Because your offense is so lost. So this is the key season, I think, for Black, year 3. And I don't think that he and Suggs can really work together. I don't actually think that he works with Paolo and Franz either, to be honest. He needs to work a lot on his shooting. He needs to take big steps forward. I always encourage this. You have to understand where somebody is coming from. It's why I will continually tell you these things. I was not high on Anthony Black as a prospect. I did not believe in him as a starting point guard. So when he comes out and doesn't show that he's a starting point guard, there is no benefit of the doubt for me to say, oh, maybe it happens. Because I never saw it. I haven't seen it. So I don't think it'll happen. But there'll be somebody else who loved him as a prospect, who looks at the flashes and sees them and goes, oh, but what if that translates across? Now, I'm guilty of that with other players. But I'm not with Black, so I understand the position I come from. So when I say, I don't buy it, I don't think he fits with these guys, this is exactly what I thought he would be, that's why, because I had a low opinion of him to begin with. And that is what always, I would never want to sit here and tell you what to think. I want to tell you what I think, I want to tell you why I think it, and I want you to then to be able to translate that across, but understanding not the end point of the information, but the process of the information makes you understand how to interpret the end point. And that sounds waffly, but I think it I think it's useful. So, is there a big opportunity for Black next season? Not really, because Suggs and KCP are still there. He can't play next to Suggs. He won't overtake Suggs. If there's an injury, you would hope that Black's able to step up, but I still think there are just way too many holes in his game that I'm not really sure are going to be easily fixable. I actually still have a small amount of belief in Cole Anthony. It's less than it was. I thought that Cole Anthony could be in the Peyton Pritchard, Kobe White, Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes group. I had this group of 5 guards who were all sitting in reserve roles. If they get chances to start, they're going to be really good. It happened for White and Quickley, Grimes, and someone who I can't remember the other ones that I said. Anyway, someone else. It happened for those guys. It hasn't yet for Cole Anthony. In fact, he was so far out of the Magic rotation, he wasn't even in the rotation to begin the season. When we got towards the end of the year, he was starting because they needed somebody to be able to generate shots and to be able to self-create. But then he got hurt himself. And in the end, it was another pretty disappointing season from Cole Anthony. 87th percentile on offensive load is not bad. He generated 25 usage, almost 10 points with 3 assists. He shot 35% from 3. They're not the numbers of a future starter or a future star at all. I still do think that if he was in a different situation and was given an opportunity, hey, we want to bring you in as our starting point guard, that we would be looking at him as a top 90 fantasy player. But my faith in a team ever seeing that in him, and I don't even know if I see that anymore. If he went to like a terrible team, say LaMelo got injured, I know, crazy scenario. Say LaMelo got injured and the Hornets traded nothing to get Cole Anthony, installed him as a starter, we'd roll him as a top 60 guy without question. But is any team going to go out of their way to make Cole Anthony a starting point guard at this point? I don't think so. I still think he's got a lot to offer. He's a strong rebounder usually. He's a pretty good defender. He's a solid enough shooter. In fact, he's the best shooter out of him and Suggs and Anthony Black. But for some reason, he seems very much out of the Orlando Magic plans, which sort of leaves him sitting in limbo. So if I were able to get him as a very cheap sort of a dynasty player, I would, because I still believe there's something there. But it's getting, what's the phrase? It's getting late early. Forget Cole and where we go. Another caveat for the next player, because I did not like Tristan Da Silva in the draft process. I would not have taken Tristan Da Silva in the first round. The Orlando Magic did, and he had a couple of interesting games early in the season, but overall, I would say that it was, I'd say somewhat better than I thought it would be, but overall, Tristan Da Silva profiles to me as a reserve forward who doesn't really seem to have a super strong strength. He is 24 already, so look, again, you know I'm going to be biased against these incredibly old rookies who beat up on their opponents in college when they're 4 years older than them. He was the 333rd ranked player for fantasy. He got worse after the trade deadline. He is not a high volume player. He's not a super strong passer. He's not a good defender. He shot 33.5% from 3, which to me does not suggest that he is a bad shooter. Rookies, invariably, even if they're good shooters, are nearly always bad. Now, some of them might be bad, Grady Dick, and then they're not good in their second year. Some of them might be bad, and I think Darius Garland's an example of this, become good in their second year, and that carries over to make them a good shooter. But sometimes, and this happens all the time, be very cautious in the draft when you hear about best shooter, this elite shooter. Often it just doesn't happen. And that's why when I'm looking at players in the draft, I want you to do something else apart from being the best shooter. Because very, very often, those best shooters are 35% shooters in the NBA, and it means nothing. So, Da Silva started some games. I don't think he can defend very well. I don't think he can pass. I don't think he's a usage player. I don't think he's an elite shooter. I think he's a reserve forward who you can spot start at times. He will have big games. Most NBA players will. But overall, he is 24 already. So we are talking quite old. We're talking the same age as Franz Wagner. Yeah, we're talking 2 years older than Paolo Banchero. 2 years older. I don't think that Da Silva, especially on this team, where is he playing? Like, that's part of why you don't draft fit in the NBA draft usually. You try to get, hey, let's see who the best player is. But like, when to me there's a real question mark on who the best player was, and it wasn't him, and then you're drafting a guy that plays the same position as Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, like, what are we doing? I guess they're trying to just get some solid reserves behind those guys, and I understand that. But I think that Da Silva, that's probably who he is. I don't think that he did enough to suggest to me that there's a hidden starter underneath there. Caleb Houstan was a second-round pick out of Michigan a few years ago. He's been given some opportunities on this team, especially when guys like Gary Harris have been injured, just to get some shooting happening on the wing. He has actually lived up to being a pretty good shooter. 40% from three this season, but he's incredibly low usage. 1 3 a game, 4 points, 11 usage, 14 minutes. And he gives nothing else. Like, look at the rebounds, the assists. Like, that's Ryan Anderson, like 1.3 rebounds. Well, actually, that's not fair to Anderson. Good rebounder. But 0.6 assists, 0.4 steals, 0.1 blocks. They're horrendous numbers. He's time on ball, 2nd percentile. Rim contest, 5th percentile. DPM delta, 17th percentile. He's just bad. And I'm not really... Like, he's got this team option for this season. There's him and there's Jett Howard, who we're going to get to next, who are on this team, who fill this similar role. Like, where does Houstan sit in this hierarchy? Overall, I don't think he sits anywhere, to be honest. I'm not sure there's anything exciting about him, and I don't want to spend any time on it, because I do want to talk a little bit more about Jett Howard, who was drafted at pick number 11 2 years ago with a pick from the Bulls as part of the Vooch trade. I, again, didn't think that Jett Howard was worth that selection. I thought the Magic made a huge mistake. Now, I actually thought they should have probably picked grade A Dick there. I'm not saying that Dick's been any good, but he's been better than Jett Howard. Howard, again, there are opportunities on this team. Hey, you know what we need on this team? A guard/forward who can shoot. Do you know anyone by that that might be able to do that, Jett? Guess not. He played 12 minutes a game. 19 usage. He's in year 2. He shot under 30% from 3, under 70% from the line, and averaged 0.2 steals a game. In the 6th percentile for deflections and averaged 4 points. DPM Delta's got him in the 1st percentile because, he sucked. No question about it. He was bad. And I don't know that I've seen one single thing from Jett Howard across his first 2 seasons that suggests to me that there is any hope here. And that feels harsh. All right, but... And I don't want to say the phrase, I'm going to call it like I see it, because that's, code for being an asshole. But I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess. I haven't seen it. It doesn't preclude that it can happen. Things randomly can happen all the time. We get interesting breakouts happening right across the NBA. But this team's been calling out for this sort of a player. And he hasn't shown an ability to get to anywhere near the level of playability. And, I would much rather take a flyer on Jett than like a Caleb Houstan, for example, in a Dynasty format and hope that he's able to figure it out. Because there is still, maybe there is something there. Maybe he can be a 3-assist, 15.2 threes player with a 56 true shooting guy, best case scenario. That's not that good. And to get there, I would need to see a lot of improvement because it's been pretty bad so far for Jett Howard. There is another player that was on their roster on a 2-way deal, but I don't believe he played a single second for this team, and that is Ethan Thompson. So we're not going to get into talking about Ethan Thompson. What we're going to do is say that's the end of the Orlando Magic season review. I really do want to hear your thoughts on Paolo in particular and how you view him in category leagues and where you think Franz Wagner can go from here as well. That would be interesting to get, so drop those in the comments below or tweet them at me or do whatever you need. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.